Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance, and you are watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast. We have a very special guest today. We have Dame Doria DC Cordova here today. She is the CEO of the famous Money and You program and owner of Excellerated Business Schools. And this program has actually impacted so many major influencers out there all across the board. So, and many of them that you know. So we're gonna learn about what Doria does and really deep dive today. So welcome, Doria. How are you?
I'm good. So happy to be here with you.
Excited. Yeah, same here. Definitely excited to have you here as well. We had Doria on Clubhouse a few weeks back as the main guest speaker. And unbelievable night, really rocked the stage, had hundreds of people in there, thousands actually, but ended a few hours. So Doria, let's get started. Can you give us a quick 30-second intro about yourself, and then we're going to get into your story right after.
Okay, well, I am the CEO, excuse me. I'm the CEO and owner of Excellerated Business Schools for Entrepreneurs, the Money and You program. And that was the program that started the whole industry, entrepreneurial, experiential, transformational training industry that many people are in and don't know. So I've been doing that for the last 42 years globally with nearly 200,000 graduates, from over 85 countries since 1979. So I have been a busy girl for the last 42 years.
That's great. Thank you, Doria. All right, Doria. So we're going to get to know you a little bit better. Let's start off and basically try to understand your story a little bit better. So I believe you said you were born in Chile.
Sí. Yes.
Right? Okay. And can you tell us a little about your childhood before you became an entrepreneur?
Oh, of course. It actually affected my spirit of entrepreneurship. I was raised in Chile for the first 12 years of my life. And my mother had a beauty salon. So I was a little worker, and I was actually the cashier many times in Mama's beauty salon, and pretty much started learning a lot about money and business very, very young. And then we were doing really, really well. And then my mom married my stepfather, and he had lost all his money. He came from a very successful family and decided to come to the United States. It was the early 60s, and there was a calling for immigrants to come and work in the United States. So he came along and with a group of men, and they were literally busboys and waiters at this big cafeteria in Los Angeles. But literally every night, and just about every night and on the weekends, they were always talking about doing business and really building something else. And this is something a lot that people don't understand, that a lot of immigrants are very successful. They come to this country and do tremendously well. So I learned a lot from them, grew up as a typical California teenager, and was in the late 60s, and then had a tragedy a month before I was supposed to be married. My fiance, we were very young, was killed in a car accident. And the reason I mentioned that, and I lost his baby 4 months later, the day after his birthday. And the reason I mentioned that, because it's a pivotal moment in my life, because it was then that I decided to just work very, very hard and be, very, very successful, and just bury the pain. And that's what I did. And by the time I was 24 years old, I was extremely successful, was an official court reporter in the legal system in Los Angeles. I ended up moving to Hawaii. Then I was in that court system. And through a series of wonderful circumstances, I had what could be called an enlightenment experience when I was 26 years old. So, excuse me, my childhood in Chile really affected how I kind of went into my 20s and what ended up happening. Because in Chile, we were very community minded. It's like, the way that you got babysitters, you literally yelled at the door, who's going to take care of Dorisita tonight? And he was like, somebody would say, I will. And, everyone was like family around you. And I think that I love that so much about Chile and Latin countries, many countries around the world. They're very community minded. And when we came to the United States, we felt very lonely. Everybody was in, after dark, everybody was in their houses, and there was no neighborhood playing and very few kids outside. So that really impacted me. And without realizing that one of my destiny was really to unite humanity. So that tells you a little bit.
Thank you, Doria. Do you frequently visit Chile these days?
Oh no, I go very, very seldom. I ended up going back to see my dad. And when I can't remember, I was taken back when I was 15, and then later when I think I was 31. And then again, I went to see him again about 7 or 8 years later. Then he passed away. So I have a lot of family on my father's side, but because I didn't grow up with them, I don't feel a need to go there. And then all the older ones have kind of died off. Some of my family came to the United States. So I created like another family in the world, so to speak, And so but I love Chile. And it is a very interesting country. You could consider it to be the 51st state of the Union. It is very attached to the United States, extremely, extremely. So countries that are very close to the United States do really well. And they have their ups and downs, but pretty much it's a very beautiful country.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doria. All right. So what happened after you came back? So you were 26, 27, and you were doing very successful. And how did you start to pivot to go into the direction where you're at now? What was the next step?
Well, when I was 24, that was when I was in the court systems in Los Angeles. And you always have to take a look at why you do anything. When you begin to really dissect your life, you will find that sometimes there's reasons why you did it. And because I had had so much loss, not only my sweetie and the babies later, I miscarried another baby. And I had 13 additional friends that died in a 3-year period. But during the time I was 18 and 21. And I was so scared because there was so much going on in the 70s. It was a horrific time in the world. We had the Vietnam War, people were dying. We had a lot of human rights, a lot of things were coming up in the world, and so I thought that going into legal, being surrounded by attorneys and policemen and judges, that I would be very safe. And I wasn't. So when I decided to go to Hawaii, and I was a court reporter still, and I started sailing. My sweetie had a yacht, a gorgeous yacht, and we took a trip, which I recommend. This is you must do this, Dr. Finance. You must put it on your bucket list for you to go sailing the Hawaiian Islands. It is one of the most beautiful spots in the universe. I mean, sailors from around the world go, their thing is to go to Hawaii and sail all the islands. Wow. And in the process of we were towards the last week of our trip, I literally had an awakening. It was an enlightenment experience in the island of Kauai, in an area called Hanalei Bay. You must go. If you go to my Facebook, my personal Facebook, you will see Hanalei Bay there with Buckminster Fuller's question, which I live by. And what I did was, when I had that experience, I had the sense that I was not put on the planet to be a party girl, that I was meant to have a job. And that was very confusing. I had no idea. I mean, I was very successful. I had a business. What do you mean have a job? And I went looking. And so I moved back from Maui to Oahu. And there I started meeting like one person after the other. Ended up doing one of the first human potential, most successful business to this day. It's worth billions, and that is Landmark Education. Its predecessor was EST, E-S-T, and it got some bad press at the time, but it truly saved my life. And when I was there, I realized that I had control over nothing. Nobody has control over much of anything, really. Control is something imagined in our minds, because anything can happen any moment. But I realized that I had control over only one thing in the whole world, and that was my consciousness, what was happening inside. And I committed that I would spend the rest of my life mastering, having self-mastery, creating not only a world for myself and my family, but also for humanity that truly worked. And that, and in less than a year later, I was at the feet of Buckminster Fuller. And then that was a pivoting moment, because Buckminster Fuller was the first human that I heard speak truth that actually resonated with my inner knowing, which every human being has. Every human being has the ability to be able to really hear what is going on. And Dr. Finance, I think that the reason why you're so attracted to all these different OGs, you're bringing a lot of OGs into your life, including myself. And many of the leaders and many of the old timers in the transformational field is because your spirit, your knowing is saying, oh, I want to learn more about this. I'm so fascinated by this. And so your own spirit is calling. And that's why I like you so much, because you are in both areas that I appreciate: finance and awareness and knowledge and discovery and transformation and experiential learning and being so fascinated by all these wonderful people that have been around for so long, including myself. And so the same thing happened to me. I was only 27 years old, and it was there that I began to get a semblance of what my job was supposed to be. And within a year, I was attending the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind, which my mentors, Marshall Thurber and Bobby DePorter, created. And they created the first business school in the world that truly taught entrepreneurship, but also having a positive impact, creating wealth by doing good. We had things like self-actualization through profitable business. And then all of a sudden, the world just began to open. Now that was 1978. By 1979, when I was 29 years old, I was already running a company and learning from all the masters that came to our business school. And then, I also started working with the Money and You program, which is a work that literally was created for me so I could have a job. And that's what I've been doing all along. And it is a journey, it is a path, and it is the greatest gift that I ever received.
Thank you, Doria. Appreciate that. And by the way, I definitely appreciate you as well. You come on the Clubhouse stage and you're always helping. I know you had the main guest speaker night, but you've been coming back pretty much every week and being supportive. And I appreciate you for doing that. So thank you, Doria.
You're very welcome. And I won't be there tomorrow or next week because I'm on the marketer's cruise. So just know that I am in out to sea somewhere, but otherwise I would be there.
Well, you'll be there in spirit.
I will be.
Yeah, we should have a pretty good one. We got Les Brown coming up pretty soon.
Wow.
So next week, yeah, hopefully. And then
that's an OG. That's an OG.
And then a few weeks after that, he's supposed to be co-hosting for. He's flipping the role. Basically, he wrote a book with J.B. Owen and several other major influencers, and they're going to be promoting that. So
fantastic.
To be continued. What book do you have? You said you're working on a book right now or something?
Yes. We just published a new version of my Access to Cash book. And if people go to accesstocashbook.com, they will read all about it. But it basically is the core teachings of my life, which is to move people from scarcity thinking to sufficiency. And then you can experience abundance. And, we probably could talk about that, about your own life. I always like to interview my interviewers, but anyway, I was just going to say, if I were to ask you a few questions, I would say that one of the things that makes you so beautiful, Dr. Finance, is that you actually emit the energy of sufficiency. I don't know if you know that, but sufficiency is when people experience that they have enough. There's choice in the world, but most human beings around the world don't do that. So about 8 years ago, and I forget because it just kind of evolved. And this is important for everyone to understand that things don't happen like that. I mean, every once in a while you'll wake up and go, oh my God, that's it. But most things, your life purpose, what you're meant to do in the world actually comes eventually by putting one foot in front of the other. So about 8 years ago, I started realizing that true wealth was accessibility. So access to cash, access to experts, to information, to networks, to investments, to support, to good medicines. Right now, we need good medicines. So accessibility is what separates people who are extremely wealthy, are well-to-do, middle class, and the resource poor, as our beautiful Lynn Twist, who wrote one of my favorite books, The Soul of Money. One of the things that the poor, they're not poor people, they are resource poor. And this is really important for you to understand that you probably have a lot more wealth than you think you do because of your access. So right now, when we're done with this hour of talking, people, all of us are going to be wealthier, not just the audience, but you and I, Dr. Finance. We are going to be more wealthier because of how we share with each other, and possibly the people that got to know me and the people that I'm going to get to know because they will reach out and connect with me. And so I wrote the revised version. David Fagan was the writer and extracted the information out of me. And we're so happy because it's really trending. I found out 2 days ago that I was trending in Pinterest. And I'm like, okay, do I have a Pinterest account? And I did a little one. And so I had to make it into a business. So I was in the middle of a million things. I had to take an hour to set up a business account in Pinterest because I was trending there. And it was like, how did that happen? Oh, a bunch of my friends were putting pins about it. And it was like, how interesting. And because they know, see, things have spirit. I'm a Ho'oponopono practitioner. So everything has a spirit. So this book actually wrote itself through me, and it's going to do what it needs to do, which is to reach the masses in many places. So it's okay if it's not a bestseller for people that already have access to all kinds of things. And I'm happy for them to realize that they could have more access and connect with each other. But I'm really reaching the masses because poverty is no good for anybody, particularly the people experiencing it. It is bad for everyone. Poverty is bad news. You can actually see it. People are leaving in droves from California, from San Diego, from LA, because they can't handle it. La Jolla, they prohibit vagrancy. So the homeless cannot go anywhere near La Jolla. But, you step out of La Jolla, which is a little tiny area, and there you have it. So it's bad for everyone. So the faster that we can all also give accessibility to others, the more wonderful that the whole world will be.
That is beautiful. Thank you, Doria. Okay, Doria, so before we get into our general questions, I'd like to first let's go right into that. So you're actually going to be a co-author with me to the 13 Steps to Riches book, which I think is really cool. We're working on book 3 coming out within the next couple of weeks. So I'm very happy, very excited about being a co-author with you. And other than that book, well, if you want to talk about that book and also maybe some other books, you already mentioned one, but if you want to mention just your general collection of books that you wrote as an author, etc. for
Actually, I am more of a CEO and a business owner, and my business model is licensing. So I actually run a global organization. So writing books for me is something that is requested of me. So I love being in the Think and Grow Rich series. I mean, for me, at the beginning, when I didn't even know about consciousness, I didn't know about the human potential movement. And I remember somebody saying, oh, you must read, well, somebody gave me the book, Think and Grow Rich. Somebody gave me the book, what is it called? Psycho-Cybernetics, I think it was
yes,
called.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Right, and as a man thinketh.
That's
was my
Ivan Meisner's favorite book, by the way.
Yes.
One of his favorites.
Friend, yes. So as a man thinker, it was a little tiny book that somebody gave me. And I remember I still have it with their little thing. And I think they gave it to me because I was such a victim. And I was so at the effect of the world. I think these people just thought, let me give her this book and maybe we'll give her a little glimpse of how responsible she is for her own life and her own thinking. So I started having some of that. So for me, I was in Sharon Lechter's book, Think and Grow Rich for Women. So now to be in another series of Think and Grow Rich is a tremendous acknowledgement of where I am at consciously, consciousness-wise, but also I'm so glad to be with so many of you that are much younger that are beginning to really apply all these principles and sharing them, because for a while, Think and Grow Rich disappeared. I mean, some people were still doing it, but you guys are bringing it all back. And there's so much conversation about it in Clubhouse. The one percenters talk about it. You talk about it. Other people talk about it. So it's like, whoa, it's coming back. And it is so needed because we've been backtracking and there is so much victimhood and so much blaming that's happening in the world. So what we need to do now is to come back to self-mastery. And that's why I'm so glad to be part of this series and of course to be co-authoring with you. And I have a manual called Money Making Systems Manual. I wrote that through the years. It probably would have been this fat, this big, but it's all about systems. I'm a systems animal. I create systems for everything. We're in a beautiful hotel room as we're getting ready to go on a cruise. And already I have all my little systems, and my beloved, he knows, oh, that's where that goes. That's where that goes. And we have tremendous peace and communication because of systems. So remember, we're students of Edward Deming. Edward Deming is still the productivity genius of the planet, even though he passed away many years ago. And one of the things that he says that most problems, organizational problems in the world, 94% at the time when he was alive, 94% were systems and 6% is people and are people. So now my mentor, who worked very closely with him, I was speaking with him, the man, Marshall Thurber, who created my work. I was speaking with him a few months ago, and he said that they have done some studies now, and they have found that 98% of challenges in organizations are systems and only 2% people. So when you set up systems, and so my money making systems manual, it's all about setting all these little systems. And if you go to accesstocashbook.com and you buy in Amazon and send back the receipt, there's an email you send it to, you will get chapter 2 of my manual, which is how to organize your office and your desk. And some of my godchildren that are very young, they laugh and they go, Auntie DC, you're so funny. We don't have desks in offices anymore. We just have this, and they show me their phone. And I said, well, I better add that. So I added that many of those tools can be applied to apps and to tools that people use. But if you're truly going to run a big business, you will have to adapt to sending emails. You will have to adapt to being able to communicate in a way that your client, your customer likes. So if you're going to be in front of Elon Musk, you're going to say, excuse me, Elon, how do you like to communicate? And he will say, well, here's a number that I will give you. And that is my number one assistant. And she or he handles everything for me. And I will know all about it. And that's what you follow. Or with me, it's like everything is email only because I type, as having been a court reporter, 120 words per minute. Put me on the little phone and my productivity slows down to, snail pace. And so I don't use my phone that much, only because I can't type that fast. But with the emails, I have zero, emails. Already went through them this morning. And most people have 13,000, 20,000 unread emails. And that's why they become overwhelmed without realizing that that has a tremendous effect on your bottom line, on your productivity. And so I am literally, that's what I'm an expert at. Most people think I am an expert about creating an economic engine around your life purpose, which is true. I am that. But the way you do it, God lives in the details. And the devil shows up when you don't handle the details.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you, Doria. One last point about the book. So Napoleon Hill wrote that Think and Grow Rich, 1937. It was the time of the Great Depression. And how ironic, we're now in an area that I call the Great Pandemic Depression. And, this book is now resurfacing, like you just mentioned, maybe probably for the same exact reasons. He wrote that to help people cope with the effects of that time. And we're bringing it back for basically the same reasons, to give this message of hope to people that, you can still be prosperous if you do the right things and get your mind straight and self-improve yourself the way you're talking about. So
may I just add to that? My
Sure.
apologies. I get so excited when you talk about that. And basically, if people can go to moneyandyou.com and download my favorite little book that I wrote a long time ago, but it will be timeless. That book will be good 1,000 years from now. And it's the business success model. And so what you have to do is you work with Think and Grow Rich, and then you work with creating a business model. Even if you're a solopreneur, or even if you're an employee, I don't mean to put that down. I love employees. I love people who are team members. I would change the wording from employees to team members, because people are really part of teams. Mm-hmm. And without them, without their contribution, businesses would not work. So when you're part of a team in a business and you are being paid for, the more that you work on yourself by studying Think and Grow Rich books, and by learning little books that you can get for free, the business success model, when you learn about how you build an organization, you learn from masters and experts, which is what you do, and thank you for that. You create a niche, which you need for marketing and also to differentiate yourself from others. You then have to leverage that niche, and that is the most important part. And I really want people to understand that leverage is key. Now, a lot of people don't realize that Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad was my business partner for 9 years. The first book, which of course, without Sharon Lechter, probably never would have made it the way that they did, because Sharon Lechter was the master, the expert in publishing, and connected that book, plugged it into all the right places. You always want a Sharon Lechter in your life. So Robert, the number one thing he learned when he first did Money and You and then led it in the business school was leverage. So most people don't understand leverage. So there's leverage of resources, of money, of networks, of everything, but there's also leverage in your consciousness. And that's what Think and Grow Rich does. It has all these teachings and all these principles. So the combination of the two, and I'm just going to finish the business success model. So it's, you learn from experts and masters, you create a niche, you leverage that niche through systems. You cannot do without systems. so that you can either be spending time doing income generating activities right now. Right now, if you're listening to this, this is an income generating activity. But that is Now Money Now, which my beautiful friend, Bernie Dorman, who's no longer with us, the head of CO Space, I loved it when he used to say, now money now. That's money that you need now. That's today's money. But the second thing, and he also, Bernie and I, we would just glee with delight because we agreed on all these things, is to actually leverage. So leverage is for the future. So you have now money now, you have leverage. And in the business success model, then you do it through an aligned team. And that's what you see back here. This is our Money and You fruit bowl, the fruit bowl theory of business. You create a context, which is purpose, a mission of why you're doing something. And then inside of it, you have the people, the rules of the game, the different policies, how you're going to make money, the marketing and all that. And so that is how you create an aligned team. And from there, you create synergy, which is right here. Buckminster Fuller, that's what you see, Buckminster Fuller's Dymaxion map. And underneath there, that's a drawing by a Money and You graduate many years ago, did the most beautiful drawings of Buckminster Fuller, hand-drawn. And now Bucky is running your life, because now the word synergy, he coined the word synergy. And then ultimately you create results. And in life, like my mentors taught me, you either have reasons why you didn't create what you wanted to create, or you have the results that speak for themselves. So you see, it's a combination of all these beautiful books. And right now, the world, but the United States is slipping faster than anybody else on the planet. And I am very, very concerned about this. But we started seeing it a long time ago. And so now the separation, the division, what people don't understand, that right now it's not about personal preference. We actually have to put community and the world first. And that is something that we have learned so much, to be independent and to have all these rights and all these things, which they are actually disappearing. They have been disappearing out of that selflessness. Because if you really understand metaphysics, if you really understand generalized principles, when you push, it will push back. And so the very thing that we're resisting, we're creating. So when you begin to outflow and begin to really experience sufficiency, that's when the world's really going to change. And that's ultimately what Think and Grow Rich was teaching, sufficiency. I hope that helped.
Thank you, Doria. Very helpful. So Doria, we're going to cover a lot of topics today. Just want to make sure we don't overdo it. Like we're going to talk about Kiyosaki, Money and You, and then we're also going to talk about Buckminster Fuller, et cetera. So figure about 20 questions, maybe 2 minutes each or so. The next topic is actually right in line with what you were just talking about. How does it feel to have been the business partner for Robert Kiyosaki, the co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad with Sharon Lechter?
Actually, how does it feel, the fact that he was my partner? I'm the one that invited him to be my partner. Robert was just a little businessman when he did Money and You. And then he was such a good Marine. So we made Robert. So I asked him to be my business partner. We spent 9 years working on all these things on his consciousness. And he was an amazing business partner. He's an amazing human being. We live in very different universes now, but basically he learned about leverage and many of the things. He talks about Buckminster Fuller now all the time, which I'm so happy about. And so we spent 9 years, and then we prepare him through the law of attraction and other principles. We brought him into our universe of creating. And he called me on the phone when he met Sharon. And then Sharon, we knew, because we had thought her out. We wanted somebody. We didn't know whether it was going to be a man or a woman, because she was going to be the one that took him to the next level. So I took him for 9 years to one level, got him prepped up, published his first best-selling book called If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to School. And it was bestseller in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. They might be little markets in the eyes of the world, but not to publishers. So they were willing to take a risk for somebody that had already been proven to be a bestseller. So you see, we are very happy. And of course, we're so happy because Rich Dad Poor Dad, the first book only, was based on our work, which is the work of Buckminster Fuller. So how do I feel about him and Sharon Lechter having put this book out in the world? Fantastic, because that is my mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory. Appreciate that. All right. Here's a question you might like. I know you've often talked about the power behind the power, people who are powerful, but they're behind the scenes. You know, they're the ones that you don't really see, the influencer. So
Yes.
it's a great concept to talk about. Why does the power behind the power want to gain more power?
Do they want to gain more power?
No, and this specific question, I was turning on you. Like, you always talk about the power behind the power, but you're the power behind the power. Why do you want to start gaining more influence? I see that you're picking up a lot of traction these days, gaining more influence.
Because the problems that I've been trying to solve for 42 years are expanding, they're growing. By now, we were supposed to be on track to eradicating poverty. And it's going worse and worse, particularly in the United States. You really, everybody, you need to understand this. If you don't understand this, you need to get on global news, because there's all these emerging countries that are really growing. And it's all, I actually don't need any more influence. I am financially independent. I'm set for life. We have a home in Maui, Hawaii, and in San Diego, two of the most heavenly places on planet Earth. We can live anywhere in the world. My beloved is a German. We can live in Europe. He speaks French and German. We could live in France, right? So I'm set, but the world is not. So I'm being called, and many of us, and this is where you see the OGs working so hard, because what we're wanting to do, and thank you, Tony, for being the next generation of bringing in more and more people. So it's not so much personal influence. I have been the power behind the power and love it. It won't be long before I disappear to the beaches of Maui again. What I want to do is I'm creating a platform which I will leverage through magnificent, much younger human beings, and they will continue with the work. And that is to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time, through spontaneous cooperation, without any ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. That is a question that Buckminster Fuller left us. And that's why I am like, oh, is it a pain to write a book, to create a platform? And like my mentors and my financial advisors say, why do you work so hard? You don't have to. Why do you work so hard? Because the world needs us. And thank you, Anthony, for doing what you do. We are being called to do another level of work.
Great response, Dory. And yes, I agree. Living in the 6th, formerly the 5th for 200 plus years, largest city in the country of America. And I see the poverty here in Philadelphia breaks my heart. It just increased exponentially. I know you sold us out in California. So it is a serious problem in the United States. It's a serious problem all over the world, always has been, but now even more so in the wealthiest country of the world, and it's increasing. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a great mission to have right now, and only if we had so many more leaders like yourself to be on that mission, I think it would be over very shortly.
We do. You're one of them. I want you to know you've been called. You put your hand up somewhere, because here we are talking away. But if I may say this, the United States is the richest country on the planet. We have a military that is 10 times larger than all the militaries combined around the world, including China still. And so don't misunderstand that part, but we're not the wealthiest. Wealth is a very different thing, and that's one of my teachings. Wealth is when you experience sufficiency, when you when you collaborate and you work with others. And that is that is the shift that you're seeing right now. And so we have to be patient. We're going through some pretty dark times right now, but it will pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory. Okay. Can you tell me about the Money and You program? So you already gave us a hint about it, but maybe if you can give a quick summary. For example, is it accredited? How long are your courses, your programs? What types of courses are there? So that was a mouthful.
Okay, so Money and You is a 3.5-day program that is really, is 65% exercises and game. 65%. So what people do is we put them into a learning environment where they go through the business success model that I spoke about a little bit earlier. And they begin to really learn all about niches and leverage, a lot about leverage. We are the leverage queens and kings. We really teach about that, all the different forms. And then in Money and You for 3.5 days, people immerse themselves. But something really interesting happened. Something very interesting is that human beings cannot really be taught. True education happens through self-discovery. So people have an opportunity to discover for themselves what are the things that are holding them back. What are the decisions that they've made? So it's a combination. I'm always the same, experiential, working on yourself, but also learning generalized principles, but also learning very sound business principles like leverage. We are not accredited because in California or in the United States, and you have to have certain specification, and we're wanting to change that. And that is one of my jobs to complete, which is you have to do like modules, and you have to do it from 9 to 5, and you have to have special reading and all that. Very old education, 200-year-old education. So we don't fit in it. And we've been working on this for actually the people that I know, 44 years. So it is absolutely, so that's why we're not accredited. But it is a program that we'll have in San Diego on April 6th to 9th. And we'd love for you to be there, Dr. Finance. You would love it. You would absolutely love it. And then we have mostly, a lot of people haven't heard about Money and You, nor me, is because we are very big in the Asia Pacific region. We have over 40,000 graduates in Singapore alone. So if you were to go to Singapore, there's quite a few Money and You graduates. That program is known and is known as the best on the planet. And in Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand, I could name so many different countries. So when people attend Money and You, because they opened up, and particularly now since COVID, to a global organization that is filled with people that love to do good and also love to create wealth. So it's a combination of money and goodness. So I invite people to come to Fridays with Doria. So they go to fridayswithdoria.com and see all the different replays. And tomorrow morning, and I want to invite you too, Dr. Finance, at 12 noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. California, I will be doing a Ho'oponopono prayer. I do one of those twice a month. And that is to bring in more love and light and peace. And it is very powerful. Kiyosaki loves Ho'oponopono. Many of the big names love the Ho'oponopono process. And you can learn about it in Joe Vitale's books, but I actually do the prayer itself. So Money and You is the bomb.
So you're the CEO of the Money and You, right?
Oh, no, I own all of it. I own Accelerated Business Schools and Money and You, and the accelerated programs are all mine.
Oh, you're the actual owner of all the.
I'm the owner of everything.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I thought that you were like basically at executive level. I didn't know to the extent. So
I am at the executive level, but I own it all.
You own, yeah, you're the chief executive.
I'm a CHO. Let me just say that real quickly. I'm a CHO, CHO, Chief Happiness Officer. When you own a business and you're a CEO, your job is to keep everybody happy. So I'm a CHO.
So what's the history of this program, Doria? Because we're going to talk about the influencers impact in just a moment. But I know that you didn't found it. I think you said you took over it from two other founders, and then
Yes.
basically you became the face of the brand uh, at that point.
No, I didn't
No?
become the face of the brand until only 10 years ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll tell you very, very quickly.
Sure.
Let me just say, in the industry and the OGs, everybody knows who I am. In the world, very few people know who I am. So basically, my mentors, Marshall Thurber and Bobby D. Porter, were extremely successful real estate developers in San Francisco. And thanks to them, San Francisco still has all those Victorians. They were being torn down in the 70s. They saved them. They were developers, and they did it all through win-win principles. There were hundreds of people that wanted to go work there. And Marshall Thurber is a total genius. And he discovered, they did research to find out why so many people wanted to go work there. And they wanted to learn entrepreneurship. So they did research of the top 5 business schools in the world at the time, which at the time were in the United States. That's changed. There's other wonderful business schools around the world now. And they found out that they taught zero entrepreneurship. So they decided to do the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind in 1978. And I attended that. I was a student of it. And I learned so much, I ended up owning the business. Money and You came after the business school. It was called the Berkeley Business School. And it went through circles like wildfire. Everybody wanted to attend, long story. And I ended up running the Money and You program, and I worked with them for 6 years. In 1994, 95, they ended up doing something else. Marshall, he became an Edwards Deming consultant, and much more than that. And Bobby D. Porter created Supercamp. Now, I really wanted to speak about Supercamp for 1 minute. Supercamp is the most innovative, the one that put on the planet teen education. That is the one that teaches children and young people how to have higher self-esteem, how to learn. So supercamp.com is the bomb. So Bobby D. Porter, Marshall Thurber went on, and on July 8th, 1985, I ended up inheriting 100% of the intellectual properties. So I call it, I won the lottery. And it was at that time that I looked around, and there was that young man called Robert Kiyosaki, who had been around us for about 4 years, had been in the instructors training program, and he was a Marine. And I needed a Marine. I needed somebody that was going to follow instructions. And through another set of circumstances, we ended up being invited to go to Australia, New Zealand, and we opened the industry there. And then it went like wildfire to Singapore, later Malaysia, and later, after Robert was already doing the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad with Sharon, we started spreading into the Chinese world. And I've been in China for like 19 years. And anybody, you can thank me for all the Chinese that are discovering using win-win-win principles. So I've been doing this through partners, through a business model that is licensing. And the reason I chose, with Marshall Thurber's help in 1979, 1980, we chose licensing because I love freedom. So you have to look at your values when you are setting something up. When you're setting up a business, I didn't want to be in an office all the time. So I created it so that I could travel the world. I could travel everywhere and set up all these different partnerships. And because of my legal background, being 8 years in the legal system, I was pretty educated already on how to do certain things. Marshall, being an attorney, could help me out. So from literally 1980, we've been having the most successful licensing business in the industry. And that's what I've been doing for 42 years. And so people get a little bit confused. When I was partners with Kiyosaki, everybody wanted to go to him and do business. And he would say, don't talk business to me. The boss is in the back of the room. Go DC, see DC. A lot of people, I used to be called DC. She's the boss. And there were a lot of people that didn't believe it and didn't come to me. And the ones who did, we did business with. And it has to do a little bit with training too, that people always think that the people in the front are the bosses. Actually, most of the time they're being run by somebody. So I always want to know who is Liz's brown power behind him. I always find out who is the power behind someone. And then I start communicating and working with them. That's one of my secrets that I'm sharing with the world now, because people get very confused. So ultimately, there's always somebody, the power behind the power. And that's what I've been doing. And I could have been a bestseller in 1982, 83. Jack Canfield, Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Money and You Graduates. Tony Robbins, Money and You Graduate, when he was 23 years old. We were around him for a couple of years when he was first getting started and launching him. We put him on his first airplane ride to Hawaii, to Colorado, to do fireworks with Money and You Graduates. So Tony is somebody that's so special for us. So, and then so as you begin to see all these big names out there, Harv Eker, you know, he was around us for 7 years. He was selling health products when we met him. And then he became that, you know, this transformational leader. So you can see that people call us the mothership. You just landed at the mothership with a lot of the people that you see that are out there in the world. They have learned either from us directly or from other Money and You graduates. So I am very happy about the legacy that we're leaving. And now I am in my legacy stage and working on the next platform so that I can go to the beach on Maui.
That's awesome. So Doria, where's Jack Canfield fit in the picture? Were you actually partnering with him on some of this too, or?
The way that Jack Canfield is I adore him. We are he had this idea in 2003, 2004 to do a thing called the Transformational Leadership Council. So I was one of the co-founders there when we started all of that. So what you fast forward, what is 17 years now, I believe that we've been doing that. So in that respect, many of us we're like partners in purpose. And I want you to hear that. So we don't have to do business together, but we can go ahead and work alongside to each other and support each other. And of course, he is aside Tony Robbins, which a certain group knows, Jack Canfield and Victor Hansen are the two most famous Money and You graduates on the planet. And there's others in Asia that you wouldn't recognize, Dr. Jenny Tay, now Dr. Chan. She was one of the most well-known women in Singapore. She was the queen of Singapore. And then you have Dato Masna Hamid. She was the queen of Malaysia. These are all Money and You graduates, business school instructors and all that. So we have been churning out influencers for many years.
Thank you, Doria. Appreciate that. And yeah, so the Money and You program, it's only once a year though, right? It's in April, the main.
Not once a year. In America, we do it twice a year, but we're probably going to be doing it more now because of all in the United States. In Asia, it happens all the time. And well, when COVID was not happening, it happened all the time. But now we created a program 2-day online, very experiential, called Evolve XP. So Evolve XP is a program that we're going to start doing at USA hours. See, people are really interesting because with me, I'm kind of like a bridge between Asia Pacific and America. And so I'm constantly talking about Asia Pacific because I work in their hours. So we've been having this 2-day program, which is like a great glimpse and experiential program of Money and You. So all the people that I've been mentioning are all Money and You graduates. And so I could have been a best-selling author back in 1983, but I chose not to be. And in certain circles, it actually works really well not to be a best-selling author, because then they don't think that you're just there to get more book sales. So I'm an ambassador. If you go to dccordova.com, you will see that I'm a global ambassador for the world's leading solar architect, Wang Ming, who created the only solar city on the planet. You will see I'm a global business developer. So I will take certain platforms that I really believe in and introduce them to all the right people. I introduced Tony Robbins to his biggest promoter in Singapore, and to others that
right?
help him grow.
Wow.
I took Jay Abraham to Singapore in 1995. I worked with him for a year. So in the background, you see I'm kind of like pulling the strings.
Doria, you keep amazing me with all these, you add these extra stories every now and then. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So very impressive. And by the way, yeah, so Doria, you do have really big program out there, and I did go check out that Friday. I can't pronounce the name. Yeah, the one that you had at 12 o'clock. I can't pronounce the Hawaiian name, but it was really cool.
Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, Ho'oponopono was a really good experience. I thought that was awesome. So also next question, and I know you just hinted at that. Can you summarize in maybe 30 seconds, 20 seconds or less, some of the celebrities that have impacted from this program? You've already stated some, but if you want to do a quick summary.
Loral Langemeire. She's another one, if you haven't met her, and she's absolutely amazing. Sharon Lechter, and I mean, it was a privilege having her there. And so she is another great Money and You graduate. Paul Mitchell here, he passed away in 1989, but he did Money and You in 1980 in Hawaii, and we influenced his work. Ben Cohen, Ben and Jerry's. He's somebody that we influenced. He did Money and You 1979 when the ice cream was still in the garage, and we influenced him, and he's a great humanitarian, him. And of course, they sold the company for $260 million, wow. And they do nothing but good things. They sold it many years ago. And there's other people like our leading instructor. His name is Dominic Leon. We are the only people in the industry that have a leading instructor that brings in revenues of $300 million a year in office supplies. So, and then there's another gentleman by the name of Tony Nash that you may, is Bookopedia, I believe this is Bookotopia, the largest publisher in Australia. And then don't get me started with the Chinese, because our Chinese programs were filled with billionaires, people that own Times in Shanghai, you know, with huge buildings and all that, and huge influence. So we have churned out our own billionaires, you know, Spotlight Stores, Ruben and Maury Freid. They were just making 35 million when they did Money and You and business school. Sadly, Ruben passed away, but Maury Freid, he is one of our billionaires in the making. And then we have some other amazing human beings. Some of them are in Fridays with Doria. If you can't figure out how successful they are, you need to learn a little bit more, but we have extremely successful, a few billionaires in there that you would never know, but they share their hearts and they share their knowledge. So once you sign up for fridayswithdoria.com, you can have access to all the replays as a gift from me to all of you, and then also be notified every week when we have wonderful events.
Thank you, Doria. The next question, maybe a minute or two. Why do you think that the concepts in the Money and You program are not discussed in modern business/finance courses of accredited universities?
Actually, they're starting to. They're starting to talk about leverage. They're starting to talk about team building. They're starting to talk about, well, niches. They didn't talk that much about niches in the 80s. A little bit, but it was my mentor that really put it on there, because he's a scholar. When one of the top 5 most intelligent, Boston College graduates begins to do a program called Money and You, people were watching and were listening. So right now, the people are talking about team building. They are teaching negotiations. So we're beginning to see a little glimpse, and new thinking, and that is so important. And it makes me so happy. So for people that do Money and You, and they see how we use color markers and flip charts and use music and use exercises, that should be how all education around the world should be. And that's what we've been doing for the last over 4 decades.
Thank you, Doria. Okay. You are known for being the power behind the power. We're going to go on this question again, different variation. Can you talk about some of the top influencers, celebrities that you have connected with? So you mentioned some already, but we're going a different direction, not just money and you, but just in general, maybe some.
Fidel Castro, that was in 1984. I was in a mission. He was going to see us for half an hour. He ended up being with us for 3 hours through a party, and I educated in education only 13 of his top educators. That's a big one. And so different prime ministers like to talk to me about, usually they're so interested to hear about Fidel Castro, but we end up learning about education. There's Dr. Tun Mahathir. He's the Prime Minister of Malaysia. He was elected for the second time. He's somebody that I have met a couple of times and one of my heroes, because he's the one that tried to put entrepreneurship on the planet. And then, of course, I mean, just about everyone in the industry. But the one that I'm really proud of is Elena Lim. Elena Lim was the biggest philanthropist and began to eradicate poverty in the Philippines. She was the one that started putting these huge factories in the most horrendous areas of Manila, and then would uplift all of they would uplift all of the conditions, the financial conditions. So all the other billionaires and squillionaires in Asia Pacific began to learn from her. So she set that in place. She was somebody that I had the privilege of being around, and she came to teach at our business school. And then we have had people, and here I wish I had my list in front of me, but we have had Michael Bash. He was one of the co-creators of FedEx. He's somebody that we met. And then there is a gentleman by the name that you may have never heard of. And he was the man who created the PERT chart, program evaluation review technique. And he was the man that used that tool in order to get men to the moon ahead of time in 1969. And I will remember his name in a minute. And he came to teach at the business school. And you had people like Tony Buzan, who created mind mapping, and some of the top educator. I don't know if you ever met Sheldon, ever heard of Sheldon? Sheldrake, Dr. Sheldrake, who put on the map the whole conversation about frequencies and all that. So there's quite a few names that you may or may not know, but if you Google them, you would be highly impressed.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to talk about another influencer, obviously not only connected with, he's taught you a lot. What role has Buckminster Fuller played in your own personal self-mastery? Maybe a minute or so.
Yeah, again, as I said, he was the first person that I heard speak truth, that my spirit really knew. And that was that by the early 70s, there was no longer the Malthusian theory of economics, which is the management of scarce resource, was no longer valid. Now that was early 70s, okay? So now we're talking almost 50 years ago. And that this is why he has impacted me so much, because he taught me about sufficiency. And when I realized that sufficiency was the core of not experiencing poverty in your heart. I have met some of the richest people on the planet that are so poor. They're so poor, fighting with their relatives, fighting with their children, brothers and sisters, don't trust anyone. What a horrendous life. I personally I had front row seats that money only solves money problems. Mm-hmm. So when you really experience sufficiency, you can have a beautiful job, you can have a beautiful family and a beautiful community and live a very happy life. Many people do that, but right now that's disappearing. So that's why we have to handle that. People understand that you have to move from scarcity thinking to sufficiency. And Buckminster Fuller, I think tomorrow we may be heading to Epoch Park here in Orlando. And that was designed by Walt Disney to honor Buckminster Fuller.
Oh, wow.
That is Spaceship Earth. When you walk in, there's this huge geodesic dome. If you go to my Dame Doria DC Cordova page, is DC Cordova Friends in Facebook, you will see the geodesic dome from Epoch Center that I took many years ago. And that was that most people don't know that Walt Disney is a great fan of Buckminster Fuller. So
I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, most people don't know. Buckminster Fuller is one of the greatest influencers, and he changed my whole life and continues to be my mentor.
So folks, for the record, he's a student of Einstein, Buckminster Fuller. That's a basis for a lot of his theories and whatnot. Is that right, Dory?
No.
Educate us on who.
Oh, no.
Fuller.
He was alongside Einstein.
Really? I heard he was a student.
No. Buckminster Fuller was a student of nature. Buckminster Fuller was a student of mathematics. And so he created his own mathematics called synergetics. There's a famous picture of Einstein and Buckminster Fuller having a conversation. And he had his own, and Einstein was very interested in synergetics. I would say that they were equals. And so Buckminster Fuller studied science, and once you start, if you go to moneyandYou.com/Buckminster-Fuller, you will find so much information and links to Bucky. But Bucky also, there was this thing called Buckyballs, which has now been designed after him. And so Bucky was one of the top 100 individuals from in Time magazine of the 20th century, alongside Einstein. So these are the OGs that most people don't realize. He was a student of life.
Now you actually personally worked alongside him when you were first
studying with him, right? We studied with him for 6 years. So he came. I got to be with him in the Hunger Project. That's how I was introduced to him, which I am a product of the Hunger Project because I want to eradicate poverty on the planet Earth. And he came to our business school, and then we put together a 6-day program for him that no one else did. And for 6 days, he downloaded all of his information. And of course, we work very closely with him. So him and his wife, Anne, there are other people that work much closer to him, but to be in his presence and to have him for 6 days and to always accept coming to all of our events. He died on July 1st, 1983. And his big event he did was in March with us in a business school in the Big Island of Hawaii. Wow. So his daughter, who just passed away, Allegra, she just passed away in the last year. She knew who we were, and I recommend everybody to go to bfi.org and really study it and learn from Buckminster Fuller. So we are distant relatives.
Okay, thank you, Doria. All right. So do self-development degrees in purpose fulfillment exist in modern academia?
It's starting to, and the word self-development is a good word. And I think that we have moved into the age of consciousness. And I think that what we could say is that we're not awakening to consciousness. Let me go back to Buckminster Fuller for a second. He used to call it the phantom captain. He said, all of us have a phantom captain. It's this part of us that knows what a perfect pair of shoes is, even though we may never have a perfect pair of shoes. So it's like we're beginning to wake up. There's an awareness. There is a lot of really young people, like I meet them, teenagers, 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds that I'm meeting that absolutely stun me, that come in with the wisdom, come in with the information already in their DNA, with there is a whole new world that is shifting. So that's what you're seeing right now is the perturbation. There's a new reality coming in, and the old is hanging on for dear life. But the old is what has created all the major world problems that we have. So it looks like there's a lot of separation going on in certain countries right now, but actually it is an emergence of something really good. So universities are having to look at, why is there 100 billion plus a year industry, which is all the seminars and all the programs and all the social media and all the things that you see? And how come we get people only from overseas that can afford us now, only the rich? They know that they have a major problem. You can actually Google, there's been several major articles in Time and in quite a few of the major magazines about the demise of traditional school unless they catch up. And they are starting to, so thank God for that.
Yeah, and ironically, this has been going on for centuries. I believe I read, I think it was in Adam Smith's book. This is how crazy this is. The Wealth of Nations, 1776. He actually has a chapter talking about the educational aspects of that time. And if you read it, and as a former university professor, I would, if I read it right now, I would say, wow, very similar to what I experienced 10 plus years teaching. Just many professors just sit there and don't care. They get their paid. And they accept it. So.
Well, they care. I have met so many professors, and I have met with many universities.
Some do. Yeah, some do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do. And the thing is that it makes it so comfortable for them. $250,000 a year with all the benefits and all the retirement and all that. What human being wouldn't want that? And so they get comfortable, and growth doesn't happen in comfortableness.
Right.
Growth happens in perturbation. That's one of the teachings in Money and You, the theory of dissipative structures. You see, we like to learn from the masters of masters. And so they learn, and Buckminster Fuller taught us to apply generalized principles that we learn in nature to human behavior. So let's say that Buckminster Fuller was a student of certain of Einstein's teachings because he loved to learn, right? But the thing is that what you can see there is that all these brilliant minds, when you really go deep into the awareness and consciousness levels, is when you begin to really see the gift that they really have for us. So we have to look at things differently. That's what Money and You graduates do. They begin to see the world very differently. And I want to acknowledge you, Dr. Finance, because I feel whenever I talk to you and your questions, and when we have those long conversations, you're so curious, you're so curious, and you just want to interview and you want to learn. You're soaking it all up. So now what we want you to do is come to some of our programs, because they will accelerate your growth so fast. You're going to be able to integrate all of that, because right now it's in your head and you're beginning to have experiences with it. But when you begin to get aligned with people that are 100% committed to solving a world problem and creating tremendous wealth, you're going to pick that. And I have a feeling that it is education and it is finances, because that is your background. But there could be something even greater that you are in the process of discovering.
I believe so too. I came from a different angle to this whole conversation, from the doors of finance. And then I found another door that no one really realized. It was the connection of survival. My last book actually saw that finance was an extension of survival. But now going into this whole self-development world, I think there's a lot more doors to open up. So yeah, you have a great point there, Doria.
You're moving into the consciousness.
Yeah, I feel
raising consciousness, human potential, raising consciousness, awareness. It's beyond human. It's beyond personal development, because now we are including the other. Win, win, win. See, in the old days, my mentor was the one that put that on the planet. Somebody else made it up, but win-win was you and me. win, win, win. It's you and me and the world. We have to make this world work. It's like we are in deep doo-doo right now for the masses. For those of us who are privileged and have access to medicines and the best medical health like I do, thank God, great. But what about the rest of the people? This is the awareness that human beings are coming into, that is pivoting, is beginning to shift. And thank God for that. We've been working on it for 40 years.
Thank you, Doria. All right, Doria, next question, maybe about a minute. How important is it to invest in ethical businesses?
Crucial. And and when we say ethical, let's call it impact business. And businesses that are going to do good, that all the product and services and programs are designed to answer the Buckminster Fuller question. Go to my Facebook and DC Cordova, and from there you will find all my other things. And you will see the question by Buckminster Fuller: how do we make the world work for 100% of humanity? If your product or service or what you're looking at investing in does that, then the chances are that it looks like to traditional financing that is very risky. But you can see it on some of the, Ashton Kushner is an example of a guy, he's a billionaire now because of all these on the edge fringes companies that he invested in. Mm-hmm. And that's because he took a risk and he's had learning experiences, but look how well he has done by moving into businesses that were impactful. He's probably taking all his money out of Facebook now, but my sense is that he has such a beautiful heart. He started out with some really interesting platforms.
Yeah, he's an amazing example of a successful individual who started out very simple and just knew how to run with the ball.
Access economy. We are in a new thing. And remember, you were here at the beginning to hear the word access. In 5 years, not even 5 years, 2 years from now, everybody's going to be talking about access. Yay. We like to put things on the map. Access economy, Uber, and Airbnb and all those, where people these big companies don't have to capitalize. They use things that are already there. That is sufficiency.
Thank you, Doria. Next question, on the same line, we're just following along. Please tell us more about the socially responsible business that you're investing in.
Oh, well, some of them are very private.
Oh, yeah. Anything you want to anything you want to talk about.
What I do is, like, for instance, in the past, I have invested in hyperbarics chambers. I am you want to know why I look like this in my 70s? Not just the Zoom. People go, whoa, what did you do? Well, I've had about 130 hyperbaric sessions, oxygen, right? Health. I truly believe that anything that has to do, I am part of, and it doesn't look like an investment, but it is, life wave patches. And that is a technology that uses the body's own light to activate, patches. So you can see that I wear my patches right here. I have patches that I use, and they are activated. I use stem cells activation cell patches. So if people go to lifewave.com/light wealth, that is my site, or Christian Menzel. It is absolutely an incredible. I invest in that immediately. It was something like only $1,600 or $1,800 or something like that. For me, I saw the business opportunity. And yes, you can say, I'm not involved. I don't do meetings, network marketing meetings, none of that. Now, there are people that in my team that do, and they're so successful. So now, between that and my Social Security, I never have to work in the world. That's besides everything else that I had already. So as you can see, when you invest in things that are having a good impact in the world, then you become automatically, success will come your way. That's a couple. You want me to keep going?
Brilliant answers. And by the way, I thought you were in your 50s. I was shocked when you first told me your age. I'm like, wow.
Thank you. And no plastic surgery. I had a little bit of surgery about 10 years ago on my little jowls, but I have to tell you, yeah. And now I'll never be able to get it because I keep saying that. But it's actually also is my body, the movements. That's where people go, whoa, because usually 70-year-olds don't move as fast as I do. Some do. And Jane Fonda was one of my role models.
Oh, okay. And by the way, I wanted to give you compliments. This whole interview, you just demonstrated your personality. Forget about the physical. You have a warm heart. Your gold chain has been reflecting a warm presence the whole time. Did you notice that?
It has. Oh, I forgot to tell you that I actually, my greatest people that I met was Ted Turner. How can I have forgotten Ted Turner? His life partner, Sally Rani, is a great girlfriend of mine, and I almost died. It's in the book, actually, in the Access to Cash book. By the way, people can still get it for only $1.97 in Amazon. I left it at that price because I'm still reaching Africa and India, and they don't have that much money. So you can still get it for $1.95. Just go to accesstocashbook.com. And in the book, I talk about meeting Ted Turner. That is one of my greatest meets on the planet. And then, of course, I have also met Bill Clinton and people like that. I have a little joke. I took a picture and Bill Clinton kind of pulled me a little bit towards him for the picture that was being taken. And I said, oh, I'm being squeezed by Bill Clinton. It's a joke. I like to tell my Republican friends.
Thank you, Doria. All right. So what do you like to do for fun before we get into the financial part, which will finish up the interview? What do you like to do for fun, just to get to know Doria a little better?
I'm actually, my beloved and I live on Maui, 10 minutes away from the beach, up on top on a place called Maui Meadows, above Wailea, the most expensive area, I think, of all of Hawaii. And, oh no, Kahala on Oahu is also expensive. But anyway, and I love to go to the beach and read my Vanity Fair. When that Vanity Fair comes out is when you know that I'm really resting. I love to watch old movies. And that's another thing to be grateful to Ted Turner for. He's the one that created, you know, AMC. I'm sorry, the Turner TMC. That's the one with all the old movies. I also love to have beautiful meals. I love beautiful meals. I'm mostly vegetarian. I eat a little bit of fish now. I don't even eat eggs anymore. So I love beautiful dinner parties. I usually don't throw them, but I love to do that. And I love to see telenovelas. That's how I keep my Spanish. And I found this telenovela from Colombia, and it's called Newly Rich, Newly Poor. And I think that Kiyosaki was the executive producer. I didn't see his name. But the whole book, the whole telenovela, and it's huge, 196 episodes.
Wow.
Right? They're only 30 minutes. But, and it was all about switching rich and poor. And I also absolutely, I used to love reading a lot more, but I read very, very quickly. But I actually love things like Stranger in a Strange Land. You all must read that book by Robert Hyland. You must read that. And then I love to be able to see, I have a little bit of a futurist in me. So I love to watch any kind of documentary that has to do with technology, and I know some people are afraid of artificial intelligence, but I'm looking at it from the place of education. So in 5 years' time, you'll be able to do Money and You from your own home, but be completely connected to a group of people through artificial intelligence. So I love to keep an eye on technology. That's probably one of my top three, besides being at the beach on Maui.
We had Daniel Burris on Clubhouse, and I also had him on my podcast too. He's one of the world's leading futurists. So I think you would. I don't know if you met him before. He's really cool guy.
No. Buckminster Fuller was a futurist. That's what he was best known for. He was constantly talking about what the world would look like in how it looks now and where we're going back in the 30s and the 40s. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Doria. Appreciate it. All right. So next question. We're going to get into, can one book change the world?
Yes.
Maybe a minute or so.
Yes, it can, if you do what it has been taught there. One book can change your world if you do exactly as you taught. What most people do is they argue with the book, they argue with the author, and it can't change. Do you want me to name the book?
Well, yeah, sure. But change the world. Of course, your world as in self, but also the world as in everyone. But yeah, you can name it, sure.
No. I'm just saying a book can. I mean, it can change the world. One book can change the world. Okay. I mean, as a man thinker, change my world, right? That would be one little book. One book I'd recommend. Now, Jim Collins now has many other books, but the best business book for most people like us is Good to Great. That came out in the year 2000. That is one of the greatest books ever. I mean, so yes, a book can. And of course, there are certain books. I mean, I have to say, Think and Grow Rich, The Science of Getting Rich. You know, I mean, I love Sharon Lechter's, Think and Grow Rich for Women. I think that every woman should read that book. And
you were in that book too, as you indicated. I went and checked it. I found it. I'm like, wow, you got a nice, good section here too.
Actually, I got a page and a half. Most of them didn't. I was very honored. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Doria. Okay, so what role has networking played in your life? Maybe less than a minute.
You mean going to networking events or networking with others?
Well, however you interpret the networking word, but basically
access.
has it, yeah.
One word, access. Networking allows me to access other people's networks, other people's knowledge, information. And networking is totally key to accessibility.
That's a beautiful response. Thank you, Doria. And of course, I know what your answer is going to be, but for the record, is mentoring important, and who were some of your mentors?
Mentoring is crucial. I've had a mentor since 1976, 77. There are some mentors that you can read, like Buckminster Fuller. I have two spiritual mentors, several, but Dr. Sananda, who started me on transcendental meditation 12 years ago, and I haven't missed once, never miss it. So consistently twice a day, I have done meditation. I have another spiritual mentor by the name of my beautiful, beautiful Jennifer Hoff, Sandra Biscayne, and Esperanza Universal, and Sandra Ray. Notice that a lot of them are women. And I also have mentors that are, and mastermind that I mastermind with, and some of them now have passed away. Bill Gold. I have three, and I can't name the other two, but I have three financial mentors that were beyond successful in their businesses that guide me and help me. And that's, I can't imagine life without a mentor or a mastermind. And I love Top Talent Mastermind with David Fagan, of course, and Isabel. And I love your mastermind. I feel like your programs, people say, oh no, now you fall in love with another room besides the 1%ers only. I go, it's the most amazing room. I just love what you do when you introduce people every Friday and you do everybody's mentoring. I think that's why Clubhouse has really run for many people, because we get mentoring there and we get to give it and we get to receive it.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate the compliment. But I agree, and that's why I do it, Doria, because I want to help everybody to grow as a team. Like I see that we're a club, right? So people who are going to show up, all right, let's add some value. Let's have fun, like the way you do with Money and You. But let's interview some people. Let's interview some great people and see if we can mastermind and learn from it. So
yes.
Thank you, Doria. All right, what are your favorite financial books?
Oh my goodness, my brain. So when you say financial, are you talking about actual numbers?
Well, books that are in finance, business, money. I mean, there's a lot of categories that the concept of financial books hide under, but really, I argue most of them. Yeah.
Well, just so you know, I'm an OG, so some of the people have left. Okay, so I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman. He passed away and he got into a lot of trouble. But I was reading, I'll think of his name in a minute. There is John Burley wrote a book on money and finances. I study Suze Orman. I really like her. I got to meet Suze Orman. It's funny, she and I dress alike. We have these suits with this long, I call it my matrix outfits. I have them made in Asia. She dresses exactly the same. Suze Orman is so interesting. She thinks small and in some ways, but I think for basics, I really, really, really like basics. And so when you say, because the only reason I'm just trying to think about it is because I have read this in different areas, for instance. So like I have learned, I love biographies of, like I have studied and I have watched documentaries of the richest people on how, for instance, the economics grew in the United States, you know, with the big guys, with the Rockefellers, right? And Ford and all that, you know, those documentaries are in Netflix and other places. So I like to study how money and finances got here. And believe it or not, Buckminster Fuller spoke quite a bit about finances when you were talking about scarcity, and he would get into this pivoting of how the world of economics works, you know. So and then there was John Burley, who wrote a book on real estate and on insurance and all the different things that are like the really big subjects, right? And then I began to read books that, you know, when you're an investor, like with Merrill Lynch and things. I remember when I had the first time, they didn't even have debit cards in the world, but I had put a whole bunch of money in Merrill Lynch, and they had this card that was attached to your account, right? So it was like, it was so different than a credit card. And then I began to get books and things from them. And I'm trying to remember the name of the authors. So a lot of my financial education happened in the 80s and the 90s. And so then you see this compilation like Tony's, you know, Tony Robbins has some beautiful books, because I was part of the 13 people that helped him create Wealth Mastery, for instance. And so there I met some of the big guys that he used to bring in, and I had.
Oh, you were involved with the Money Mastery book, Doria?
Wealth Mastery,
yeah.
the program that Tony did. Yes, I
cool.
was part of. In 1994, I got called in to November 1993. That's why I met Jay Abraham, and there was a group of us that was talking about how do you really get people to be wealthy. So I have been around the people that are really experts and masters. I have been around Jenny Tay. Her brother was the #1 investor in all of Australia, one of Australia's richest men, and talking to him about the stock market. We did a business school for investors where Keith Cunningham, who created the cash flow quadrant, they didn't name it that, but he was our first financial mentor with Kiyosaki. Dolph DeRoos, you know, John Burley that I spoke about, Bill Shapoff. These are the 4 rich dads to Kiyosaki. They are masters of finance and real estate and investing. So as you can see, a lot of my education has come from being around the people and documentaries. So when you say a book, it's really hard to think of one book.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has that had any?
Well, it's based on my work, so absolutely. Yes. That is a great book.
Sharon Lechter's books and Thinking.
Oh, Sharon.
Like that.
I love Sharon's. I love the devil book. I love 3 Feet from Gold.
Yeah,
Sharon Lechter, absolutely, totally. She's a master. Loral Langemeire, Now all my girlfriends are coming in. Loral Langemeire has some great books.
She was on the show.
Oh,
Yeah.
George Antone, Family Bank. What is it called? George Antone. Go look him up. He is financial wizard.
Okay. Thank you, Doria. Okay, and I skipped the question here, but can one person change the world?
We have had examples of that. Gandhi, yes, some amazing. Yes, one can. And they have come in at different times in history. You know, Jesus changed the world. Buddha changed the world. So it's Muhammad changed the world. And the beautiful, how can I forget the beautiful, my friends who, my Utah friends are going to be very mad at me that I can't remember the beautiful man that did that beautiful work. So yes, they can. I don't think that just one can change it for everyone. I think it comes in stages and at the time that they have come in. Buckminster Fuller, no question, hands down, changed the world.
Thank you, Doria. All right, a few more questions, and we're almost wrapping up here, about a minute each. Do we need money to survive?
In the world as it is now, yes, of course. Now, if you were to live in a tribe, or you were to live in the Amazon or in a community that did bartering, then you would have to have agreement with everyone there, clear rules of the game on how to participate with each other. But money has been designed in order for us to exchange for product and services that we need. Now, do we really need it to survive? I guess you could be in the jungles of Maui right now and you could survive, and some people do, but they look awfully skinny to me. You know, I see them. And so, you know, they go hungry a lot. So if you're a breatharian, you may not need it. And I have met a couple of those too. So the way that the world is set up right now, yes.
Great answer. Thank you, Doria. All right, is finance necessary for everyone?
To have a basic understanding of it, absolutely. This should be a basic curriculum, the way my mother taught me about money from the time I was 5 years old. It's a means of exchange. That's all it is. I don't have the thinking, never have all the attachment to money and all that. It's like, you know what? You absolutely, every child should have an understanding of basic finance, how the world works financially. Absolutely. All the different ways, the systems and all that. A must.
Love it. All right. All right, 3 more questions, and you'll love this one. How important is having a purpose in business? And what is your purpose?
My purpose is uplifting humanity's consciousness through socially responsible business. For many years, it was just business, but then about 15 years ago, it came okay to say socially responsible. Absolutely, it is the wind beneath your wings. Absolutely, a purpose, the most simple the purpose. My mentors, Marshall Thurber's, is to love, learn, and earn. Love, learn, and earn. That's a beautiful purpose. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it has to have emotional significance to you. And also when you describe it to people, that they can get behind your purpose so that you can grow your business. And that's why people that love me so much and work so closely with me, and some for decades and decades, is they love me, but they love my purpose more.
Thank you, Doria. All right. What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
Honestly, the eradication of hunger. And you know that we are looking right now for that 100 billionaires that each will contribute 1 billion, the way that Ted Turner set up the UN Foundation with $1 billion, right? So we are looking for that right now. Right? It only costs, it's less than 100 billion to eradicate hunger on planet Earth, hunger. And that will allow also for all the NGOs and all the people that know how to maintain it, literally how to bribe warlords. You're going to need to do that. You know, that Haiti situation, you know, with the 17 people that were kidnapped, right? when you started listening to people, basically the way that people keep the peace there, people are kidnapped all the time, is by paying off people. And that is many places in the world. So if you're going to really eradicate hunger, you're going to have to pay people off. So that part of that money is 100 billion. You can't say, oh no, I'm not going to pay anybody off. That's not how certain parts of the world live. And so it is really important. And I feel that that is my number one thing to do. And then we can move to poverty. But hunger will handle. Then you'll have people who are not starving, who are not, they don't need to steal, they don't need to rob, they don't need to. Why would somebody want to work at McDonald's for $8 an hour when they can sell, drugs and have a lot more money? It doesn't make sense to many, many young people. So we have to shift the world.
So it's more than just hunger. We got to shift the mindset of getting purpose to people so that they don't think about selling drugs and doing bad things, to get them on the right track somehow.
Look it up. It's already, the UN has come up with, somebody said 17. I kept thinking 16, but it's 17. The sustainable goals. Google it. UN. What are the goals to handle the world? Of course, number one is hunger. Then books like Drawdown by Paul Hawken, Drawdown, that book is crucial because it shows you that the number one thing that you have to do in order to solve the biggest problems in the world is education of little girls and women. That is not somebody's good idea. It actually has been proven scientifically that when you take care and you educate little girls and women, it will solve so many problems right then and there.
Thank you, Doria. All right, last question. What would you like to be your legacy to this world?
I just mentioned it.
If you want to summarize it real quick.
Yeah, one of my missions to eradicate poverty and hunger on planet Earth, and the other one is the greening of the world. And that's why I work so closely with Wang Ming, the world's leading solar architect. SolarValleyChina.com. Go read about that. And just so you know, it's not so much that I know that there's going to be a process. There's going to be a process of moving from fossil fuels, but we can do this, and it's going to take a little while, but it's urgent now. And there's so many people in the United States are suffering. So what we want to do is we want to solve that. Do whatever you can. My legacy is for people to understand that they are the answer. Whatever it is that you do will make a difference. I really would love for people to understand that. That's my legacy.
That is awesome. Thank you, Doria. And thank you for coming here today. I appreciate you spending the extra time and getting this interview right. So what I'd like to do before we close out is to hand the floor over to you, and you can talk about anything you want, your websites, where you're at on social media, maybe show and tell if you want to show some books or whatnot. The floor is yours, Doria.
Well, thank you so much. I wish I had known that I was going to be doing that. I could have had all my things ready, but what I do want to say, I do want people to go to accesstocashbook.com. That's going to be up for a while, that webpage. And right now, if you're watching this live, like I said, you can get the book at Amazon for $1.97. Turn in the receipt, and you can go ahead and get a bonus of that chapter to get organized, your desk, your office, your phone, your apps, right? And what I'd like to do is I just would love for you to go ahead and follow me, because the people that are in my network, you know how people talk about, they say that they have all these people that are trying to bring them down, and they fight with them, they disagree with them. I don't have any of that. Part of it is that truly, if somebody begins to be very negative, or not that they don't agree with me, because I do have quite a few people that don't agree with me on things, but if they can lovingly express it, they're welcome to stay in my social media. If not, they're not welcome to be there, and I just disconnect, but very, very lovingly, right? So you can create a world. And part of it is I want to invite you, and tomorrow, if you're watching this live, every other Friday, at 9 a.m. California, 12 noon, New York. We have a Ho'oponopono prayer that I do both in Clubhouse and in Zoom. So if you go to fridayswithdoria.com, you will always get the information. And that will allow for us to do a little bit of clearing work on all the ACA cords, those cords that we have that connect us to people and things that may not be the best. But that's why I used to be called DC all the time. That stands for Doris Carmen. And about 5 years ago, DC, Washington, DC, became one of the most toxic places on the planet. I mean, what was happening there, and I'm not blaming just the leadership, just all along what was happening, and the atrocities. And so every time I would hear DC on the TV, my body would jerk. And so 2 or 3 years ago, I went back to my birth name with a little change to Doria. So frequency, just feel, just when you begin to meditate and when you really land in your body and you align your inner family, your inner mother, inner father, inner mother, and inner child, your internal family, then you become much stronger and you become more clear and more peaceful. You won't be attracting all of these dramas and horrendousness into your body, into your life, into your family. So peace begins with us and it will spread out into the world. So I just wanted to say, follow me in my Facebook. I'm still a Facebook girl. From there, you see all the beautiful people. And I want to make sure that you send me something, Dr. Finance, so I can post about this program, on my Facebook so that people will come and see this beautiful interview. But also because we want to keep spreading the love and the light. Just remember that, the love and the light. And you want money, you want wealth, you will shine everywhere. People are going to want to do business with you. People will be attracted to you. Total strangers will come to you and yesterday, my flight changed, so I didn't have my beautiful seat anymore. I had been upgraded and all that. And the poor woman was mortified. She so wanted to please me so that I had lost my seat. I said, don't worry about it. I said, it's good for my ego to sit on coach. It's good for me. And she says, I'm going to give you the best seat I can find. And she did. She gave me an exit row with tons of room around me. I was fine. So people are going to want to please you and love you when you want to please and love others. So lift up your frequency, hang out with me, come and see us on Fridays at 4 p.m., right? 4 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Yes, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific.
Pacific time.
Pacific time, yeah. And it's every Friday we have in the clubhouse. So you just basically, you would click my link at the bottom of my profile and it'll take you right into the room. And Doria comes in there every second week now. So that'll be pretty cool. And
come and hang out with us. Be at this frequency, be at this. And I want to thank you, Anthony. I just want to really acknowledge you. You are part of my legacy. You understand that, right? That you are one of the people. I'm spending this kind of time with you because I feel that God brought us together. We didn't just happen. Like, I meet so many people and I get invited to so many events, and I choose very wisely the ones that I want to be with. And I acknowledge you. I thank you. My heart is filled with love and gratitude for you and your family and all the people you work with and all the people that you affect and all the people that you bring in. And may they all be blessed. And thank you for the work, because this is the only thing that's going to get us out of the doghouse of this poverty and hunger, homelessness. Let's all work on it and find your life purpose and create an economic engine. And with that, I'm actually complete.
That is awesome, Doria. And by the way, I want to say thank you to you for coming here, for spending the time on Clubhouse as well, several hours, just the one night alone. And then you've been coming pretty much every week faithfully. So that's hours on top of that. And then today. So thank you, Doria. And we're going to be amazing co-authors. And we are, I agree with you, partners in purpose. I like that term you used, because we do have very similar purposes. So thank you. Want to make the world a lot better. And thank you for all the energy that you you spend on that mission. So with that said, folks, this is Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast. Here is my website for more information, drfinance.info. Follow, like, and subscribe, both myself and Doria, on all social media platforms. And yes, we will be posting this podcast to all the podcast directories. I'll be posting all over social media. And Doria, you're more than welcome to use this interview for your website as well. And Facebook, I will be, of course, posting it there to my hundreds of thousands of followers. Plus Clubhouse, we'll be pinning it to the top so they can check that out on Friday nights. I'll pin our little interview here today at some point to one of those. So also, folks, here are my books on the right side, my 3 major books, plus the books I'm involved with Doria. My first book was called The Necessity of Finance. I wrote this for my finance students, The Need for Finance, about 10 years ago, right? And this platformed into writing the second book, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance, about 218 principles, time-tested through thousands of years. And then my final book, The Survival of the Richest, was an extension of everything I always thought kept thinking about and writing about, the concept of struggle and survival. Couldn't figure out what the link was. And my martial art background wanted me to press that. So I did. And I connected and found out that finance is an extension of survival. Economics actually is not the parent of finance like it is in the Nobel Prize. It actually is the child of finance. So if you want to understand that a little more, definitely check out that 500+ page book, The Survival of the Richest. And again, folks, we're going to have some amazing episodes coming up. So definitely check out Doria. Doria, what was your website again?
The website is Access to Cash. Oh, actually, go to dccordova.com or meetdoria.com.
Meetdoria.com. Meetdoria.com and dccordova.com. Either one is good.
Same
and
one.
Also, same one. Okay, great. All right. Well, yeah, DC, Doria, if you can hold on just one second as I close out. So, folks, thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.
Aloha.